All right, everyone, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts, analysis, and live day trading. We do have a site-wide sale live today, so that's 60% off first month of active trader, 25% off first month of swing service, and like 20 to 25% off pretty much all the other services site-wide. Details are in my pinned tweet. Probably a good time to promote the cycle course. Right here in our Discord, 9:20 a.m., timestamp that. We have a cycle date in play, and we're looking for a big one here. We're looking for a reversal signal, and we have that. So that was before I knew that Iran was going to shoot ballistic missiles at Israel. And, now there's all sorts of retaliation and escalation fears. Take a look at oil here. Big move today, up 3.62%. It is off the highs, but what a pop there. And I've talked to you guys about this late last week. Started to get a little bit bearish here. Started to look for momentum to kind of decline. And, kind of reiterated that yesterday. And we definitely got a good sell here. I told you guys not to be fooled by the end of quarter nonsense. This is totally end of quarter markup, right? This forced buying. There's no, there's no fundamentals behind it. This is just a mechanic of the market here. And we got a very good outside move down here. Now, I don't think we're going to go down in a straight line. I don't think we're necessarily going to trend down. You can see the market is actually, all things considered today. I mean, like, given all the headlines that got thrown at it, it actually held up pretty well. We closed above 5,700 on SPX. I think a good chunk of that is probably because XLE was up so much. And you did have defensives get a pretty good bid. XLU up nicely. So there was a little bit of support there. There were some stocks that did okay. Like Tesla came up nicely off the lows, only down 1 1/3. Not a bad test candle there on the daily. That can hold up still. You had stocks like Amazon that came nicely off the lows. So, Google was green. So Google with a little outside move here. So it's not like the market was, terrible. The Russell actually finished off the lows. They did close back below that wedge. And QQQ broke 486, which we'll talk about. But, the market, it wasn't the worst thing here. And I'll tell you that I don't think we're necessarily going to trend down here hard this week. A couple of reasons. One, I do think there's possibly a high in place, though. But I don't think we're going to necessarily trend down hard here. And one is volume, a little lacking. Granted, we got the 1% down. We got 1.5 on the Qs, just about. But, I want to see 100 million shares. If I saw that, I would say we're going down hard. More likely than not, anyway. But the volume kind of lacking on SPY. And the other thing is that there's this situation between Israel and Iran. There's going to be event volatility for tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. The big one being Friday. Why do I say that? Because we got jobs. We got ADP at 8:15 tomorrow. We've got jobless claims, more ISM data at 8:30 Thursday, and then of course NFP 8:30 Friday. Volatility already elevated into that. It's gonna be tricky. So even if we get really bad data, which I talked about yesterday, we probably won't. I could see ADP maybe being bad, maybe jobless claims being, slightly worse, but they're not going to make that non-farm payroll. Like, there's no way the incumbents are going to just not try to cook that number as much as possible. We got like 30 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks until the election, right? They're gonna make that number look good, which could drop rate cut odds. So that could be a bad thing if the number is really strong. But I think with event volatility baked into the cake here, it's going to be hard for this market to really go down here. Additionally, there's the old saying, buy the invasion, right? We've talked about this before. I told you guys to do that here, and nobody believed me, and I said buy right here, and that ended up working out. That now I don't think we're going to do that right here necessarily. Buy the invasion isn't a license to just go long. We had to buy the invasion set up right here, and we went down, and then we went back up, and then we ended up going down for the rest of the year. So it's not necessarily perfect. There's no be all end all, but I don't think that there's going to be necessarily. I don't think we're going to have a trend day down tomorrow. I would be a little surprised, honestly. We could gap down. I think next level is, 56.50. We effectively hit 56.75 today. 56.81 is close enough. But I do think there's probably a pivot high in place, but I'm not looking for huge amounts of declines here, at least not right now. That could change, but really the bottom line is 57.20. And if you've been following me on Twitter, I won't shut up about this, but it's 570 SPY. This is like the greatest strike price of all time, apparently, because we just can't close more than $1 or so away from it, even if World War III is starting. So I guess 570. Just some people asked me for advice yesterday. Just sell premium at 570 and get rich. Apparently that's the easiest strategy ever. But in any case here, as long as we're below that, sellers are in control here in the short term. That's what I'm going to say. Now, trend is still up on the daily, but near term, seller control below 570. Qs, the picture is a lot worse though, right? We lost 486 by a lot, like not even a little bit, by a lot, right? And you got hourly kind of bear flag look there as well. So we lost that big level. We did hold 480. So you can see like the pivot low right there. We pierced it, pierced it again. We did hold 480, but you now have lower highs here. And I mean, you could easily just say this is a false breakout, right? There's really not anything saying that that's not the case at this point. If we draw in our trend lines a little bit closer, where do you think we're probably going to go? I would say probably right there, right? 470. We get down there, it's probably a good area to buy, at least for a short-term bounce. So we'll be watching that little nexus there. There's more trend lines later. We'll talk about that some other time. We don't need to worry about that right now. But again, 56.50 is next down, and then obviously 56 even on SPX. I'm a little surprised we didn't get to 565 today. There was some decks sitting down there, and there's some short, or there are some puts waiting for assignment at 565. So I think we could get there tomorrow if we gap down. But I think that gets filled, and that could end up holding. We'll see how it goes. We'll be watching it in the trading room tomorrow for sure. So let's take a look at the Russell. So again, a little bit of weakness here, down 1 1/3. We closed below the trend line. Again, so again, kind of like the Qs, possibly false breakout there. Got a lower high and a lower low now on the daily. Like looking at it on the RTY as well, same kind of look, but it did hold the 20 MA. So we'll see. If this breaks though, I mean, there's kind of an air pocket here, right? Not really a lot of support. We just kind of squeezed up. And you can see those gaps there, a lot of them to fill. Lower trend line down here too, 200 MA. Dow here, we talked about that topping tail, but again, kind of just, bounced off the lows on good volume. Again, makes sense, right? Markets in turmoil, call CNBC, go to the blue chips. By the way, speaking of blue chips, take a look at Nike. They just reported earnings, so that's down $1, about even like 50 cents, looks like, after hours. Yeah, so all over the map there for NKE. We'll see where that ends up. Not a huge, doesn't look like a huge move in either direction here. But yeah, Dow down, SMH down 2.6, but I don't like this either. This is kind of a big red flag too. So just, he held the 50 and the 20, he didn't even really test it. And in fact, NVIDIA, I was mentioning this in the trading room earlier too, like NVIDIA was strong in the morning. It wasn't really down that much. First half hour, we were barely down. And that was when the market was getting pounded. And the Qs were getting pounded. Microsoft, Amazon was getting rocked. Netflix had a huge gap in crap. Tesla was getting rocked. And, NVIDIA held up. And then by the end of the day, it just did not hold the relative strength. So a little weakness there. Broadcom also down pretty good. TSM green to red day. Again, held the 20 MA, but not really the greatest look here. So SMH, definitely a point for the bears here. Couldn't hold 250. That couldn't hold the breakout at 250, and it did head lower. I think, this probably has a date with that 200 moving average again. So IGV here, outside move down. That is an island. So I've been mentioning that for the last week and a half. I said, I don't like this island look. I like this. I like the index. I like the stocks. I like the weekly, and I still like the monthly, but the daily, be a little careful. And that's an outside move down. That's an island top confirmed. So Be careful with cloud here. It's still a strong sector. I still like the sector. Didn't sell on volume either, but definitely a good sell there. Wiped out the last 2 weeks of trading in one day. So down 2% there. Transport's down, although they came off the lows. Again, it's like, there's some sectors here that were just not that bad, right? I mean, like, this came nicely off the lows by the end of the day. And, go figure, right? So, by the way, Jolts today was definitely better than expected. And the port strike, to me, that's just noise. The real strike is 570, and I wish I was joking about that. But the Dow Transport's down 1.17. Again, still the big level is 16.2. And this pattern on a macro scale is not bearish. All right, Bitcoin was down quite a bit. We'll talk about that too. And by the way, the yield curves, again, so here's a reason why I don't think we're going to trend down here necessarily, and why I think there's a lot of noise out there. If we're going to have this big war situation, and if jobs are about to crash and deflation and all this stuff, why is the yield curve, flattening out on 2s and 10s? And specifically, why was the 2-year even close to green today? I mean, it was down 1%, down 3.5 basis points, but I mean, even look at the 30-year. TLT should be ripping higher, right? This is there's a red flag for bears in the near term. This should be mooning. If there was real fear in the market, this should be mooning. And it's only up, 40 basis points. It's up. But look at the price action on the 30-year. The low of the day was when the news came out. And we put in higher lows the rest of the day. 10s, same thing. This is speculative, but what if this happens? Inverse head and shoulder, right? You got a little test candle there on the daily. It's not out of the question. So yields here, it's a big red flag. And I said this yesterday, I wouldn't want to be long yields into the jobs on Friday, because just from that alone, they're not going to. I mean, do you really think they're going to just have this allow there to be a huge miss? Biden's just going to give that up? There's no way. And then you add in literally war, World War III prospect here, and yields aren't at the 52-week low. They're not even, they should be crashing. So that's a huge red flag if you're a bond bull here. I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. XHB down 25 cents, barely down, of course. Why would XHB be down? Still up at the highs. Still very strong. VNQ is down as well, but it did close above yesterday's low, for what that's worth. But it still is kind of backing off on the weekly. We'll see. You do have an inside bar here potentially setting up. So if it stays firm, it could still go higher. But it did back off of the 618 very nicely. XLF also a little bit on the weaker side. Still closed above yesterday's low though. JPM inside day. So holding yesterday's low and watching that stock closely. But XLF hanging in there. KRE down 3 1/3. That dragged the Russell down. So again, back inside of the wedge here. The regional banks definitely weak, as was the larger banks. And broker-dealer strong, of course. Still got that bullish inside bar. The volatility is very good for them. Oil, obviously we mentioned, so up 3.5, but it did come off the highs. And here's a red flag too. All right, so if World War III is hypothetically happening, can I at least get a daily higher high on oil? We can't even break the 50 moving average. So this is why you've got to follow the charts here. Don't get caught up in the headlines, this, that, and the other. There's going to be 1,000 headlines between now and 9:30 tomorrow morning. But can you make a higher high, please? I still think energy getting close to bottoming here, if it hasn't already. But, in the short term, just as far as how it relates to the markets, you'd think that this should be making a higher high. You think that TLT would be mooning, right? They're not. They're telling you something's wrong. They're telling you something's BSing. Even XLE, it looks like it just got to double top there, 90.14, 90.16. Good volume. I like the charts firming up. You may even have, speaking of inverse head and shoulder, right here. There might be one right there. But we'll need to see follow through though. I do like the energy stocks here. I think they're attractive. I'd like to see a little bit more pattern, but it's still looking pretty good. But again, just as far as oil is related to the markets, can you make a higher high, please? CCJ up 88 cents. This is consolidating the big up move. The more it does of that, the more chance it can, more chance it has to go higher. The same thing with URNM and NJ. They're still acting fine. Nat gas still holding up very well. Again, another little test candle there. I think a little bit more consolidation will get that up past $3. Definitely by the end of the month. And then I think it continues up into November. Another thing too, again, if there's, you know, I guess, well, you know what, let me take that back. The dollar is a little bit different. So the dollar can go up for other reasons. I was going to say the dollar should be down, but it's, if there's fear, I guess the dollar can be up. But we did get that final, you know, we got 2 up days in a row. We're above the 20 MA. And I'm watching the RSI here. Again, nice divergence. It's setting up here. Again, I think they're gonna force the jobs number to look good, and I think that can help the DXY out here, especially if you do get fear. So 102, 102.50 are your short-term levels on the dollar, and of course gold up. But again, is there really fear if gold can't make a new 52-week high? Just questions I like to ask. Silver up 50 basis points. Platinum up 1.25, and palladium up a third. I think these are getting attractive again, as I mentioned yesterday. Copper was up nicely, up 0.5%, but again, a lot of resistance up here, so that needs to consolidate that move. Grains were up as well. Wheat, again, it's good wartime. You know, commodity up 2.25. I haven't even checked. So yeah, soybeans are flat. Corn's come nicely off the lows here, but again, not really seeing the move you'd expect in certain things. If the market, the broad market, was seriously concerned, though. But anyway. So Bitcoin down. And again, we talked about this. So pretty good move here. You're going to see a lot of people take a victory lap. That's fine. I actually want it to be down. And you still do have the daily and weekly higher highs and higher lows. So now we can say that more likely scenario here is another higher low. That could be tomorrow, that could be next week, could be in 3 weeks, but I think that is the case here. So I talked about this. We had a nice move. I said this might curl back down, and I think it's probably doing that now. But I'm looking for this dip to get bought for a breakout eventually. But did come off the highs. We're basically into this little pivot right here, 60,500. By the way, the October stuff, I told you that was one thing I didn't like, and I think that's probably why we're not going up. But we'll see. There's also a short-term trend line right here as well we can keep an eye on. So we'll just leave that on there, and we'll see if it gets down there. But overall, again, bottom line, all you need to know is 57.20, 570. If we're below that, gives sellers the upside bias or the benefit of the doubt. Assume any bounce can get sold into. Like we tried to accept above 570 for an hour and a half, and we couldn't. So, you know, just assume that any bounce can be sold into. We reclaim this, we will squeeze. As simple as that right now, and that's really all we need to look at. So anyways, guys, going to wrap up here. Again, you guys take care. Don't forget to come find me on carnivoretrades.com. I will see you guys all tomorrow.